Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. So I am here today for a brief talk about um, Google versus Einstein in art. Um, so it's a moment in history to hold them both together, right? So you must be wondering what I'm talking about. And before I start, as artists, um, I want to be talking about whether you want to be um, a multi-billion dollar company like Google of art or an Einstein in art, right? So let me quickly check if I am showing online in the right profile. Uh, so, so that I can start. Um, yeah, I think I am. So, hello there, everyone. I had completely missed that I had announced the time as 11 o'clock. So I just remembered and I quickly came online. So in case you're watching me live, do comment live or drop in a hi or a hello and let me know if you're able to hear me well. Um, and if you're watching this as a replay, you can comment replay. So today's talk, I wanted to talk about something extremely important. I wanted to talk about money, right? So this is kind of an elephant in the room uh, as artists, we often wonder about, um, or hesitate about charging money or about us talking about money, right? So and in fact, I was one of them, right? So I wanted to address that and understand the two different mindsets that we have, right? So I want to talk about the two different North Poles and South Poles of this mindset of money and where lies the balance? Where should ideally be standing in order to um, be deemed successful as artists, right? And for yourself as well. Now, success is a subjective proposition, and it varies from person to person based on your personal definition of success. But in general, what would your definition be to consider yourself um, a successful artist? So today's talk is going to be helpful for all of you who are aspiring artists, professional artists, established artists, and you know um, are earning a lot or are wanting to earn a lot or make art as your you know source of income. So this is going to be relevant to all of you, particularly because I feel many of you have been in the same boat that I had been traveling in, with a dilemma in myself all the time about how much should I charge, whether I should charge, whether it is fine to ask for money, or whether it is even okay to think about material gains out of something as worthy as art, right? So I'd been in that dilemma for all these years, right? Um, so they say, uh, as our mythology, as our Upanishads say, our work is our worship, right? So that has been kind of the driving motto for many of us, right? And I feel it's not just for artists, but for many of us, we literally considered, we have kind of grown up with a mindset where we consider our work or our pursuits of excellence as our means of devotion, or as a form of devotion and worship, right? It is a form of uh, fulfillment that we try to achieve. And the moment we try to think about um, it as a form of excellence, as a form of worship, the very thought of having personal gains or personal, benefits out of it seems somewhere counterintuitive, contradictory to the whole idea of having art as something that you really do out of deep passion, isn't it? So with that, you know, and this is not just, I mean, because I said about our work is worship, this is not just true for India, right? It is a global phenomenon. In fact, it's not just a phenomenon that's seen now. It's been since times immemorial. All creative people, be it artists, singers, writers, literers, um, anything, they were so deeply engrossed in the whole process of creation, in the whole process of creativity, that they never thought about anything else. From history, Vincent Van Gogh, right? Uh, a legend who was literally a paragon of pure artistry. We know how much he struggled financially all his life, right? And, um, you know, it is kind of an example for us that tells us how, um, you know, how one has in history um, led the entire life in the pursuit of passion, become reputed, but probably became reputed only at the last leg of his life. Um, and and probably not without much commercial success, right? So he really never qualified the commercial lens. Now his artwork is valued at millions of dollars, and in fact, we all know that there are multiple artists and galleries, and all of them, they even treasure first copies of those artworks, right? Even the copies are sold well enough, and there are lots of us who would love to paint like Van Gogh, right? So um, that is one extreme example that I have where, and he's not the only one. In fact, people who have read about um, I think it is O. Henry's story of The Last Leaf, one of my favorite short stories. He also talks about an artist, a couple of artists actually, who are struggling, right? And their struggle um, is more financial. And for the two young artists, it's also about a, 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 you know, a constant um, struggle for building their reputation, but the story primarily revolves around finances versus the intent of art for the elderly gentleman who painted the last leaf. So through history, we know that we have had this mindset where we considered, the pursuit of passion, a pursuit of creative forms of art, not just visual art, expressive arts, and performing arts. So all of these have had a kind of contradictory nature to the very pursuit of gaining wealth out of it. In the modern context, however, I feel we have been, and it's not just in the purview of art, we've had a more or less, uh, I would say, radical shift in the whole view of how we look at things, right? For artists, for example, you'll see a lot of social media influencers who are artists and uh, who actually prioritize their follower count and the income they buy from Instagram and YouTube, sometimes, okay, at the cost of their artistic integrity. Uh, as artists, I think in many cases, I've seen that it becomes like a compulsive routine to create a story for Instagram rather than focusing on the whole artistic value and the contribution of the art towards the greater good or towards any form of societal benefits, right? So this is kind of a representation of the other extreme kind of mindset that we are moving towards in our generation now. So commercial success also somehow I feel is becoming, if not the sole measure, but a big quantity, a big portion of what we, dedicate as a percentage for measure of success. So I think off late and more so going forward, we're continually being driven by, if I can say, limitless ambition and our skyrocketing drive to achieve everything. Our generation is made to believe that each one of us is born to achieve or is meant to achieve everything that I want to achieve, right? And the problem is not there. The problem is there is an open-ended um, part of this statement, right? They tell us that you can achieve whatever you want to, and they never tell us what we should want to, right? And there lies the problem. We don't know where this want to should start and want to should end. You know, we do not realize when our wants, just step about a little bit above our needs to greed. And probably that's where the root of dissatisfaction, the root of um, you know unhappiness lies. Just today, as I was talking to my friend, um, we were talking about, I don't know, I can't remember the entire thread of the discussion, but we were talking about happiness and unhappiness. And we realized that happiness is something that is comparative, right? And comparative in the sense, if I am in a circle, if I'm surrounded by people who have way more affluence than I have, I will always feel, not just affluence, okay, achievements, let's say, what I would call achievements. If I'm surrounded by people who have way more achievement than and acclaim than I have, then I would always feel insufficient, insignificant. I would always feel the need to have more or do more. At the same time, if I'm surrounded by people who do not have as much as I have, right? Um, I'm surrounded by people who have lesser acclaim than I have lesser affluence than I have, then at the same, with the same things that you have, you will feel more content. You will feel more um, accomplished than you would feel in the other case, right? So happiness is a state of mind which is based not on what you have, but based on what you do not have or have in comparison with the people you know, in comparison with the sphere that you are in, right? So the question becomes, how do we know where to balance, right? Should we compare ourselves always with a set of people who are less accomplished, less affluent than I have? Then I will probably not be as ambitious as I should be. And on the other hand, if I am always with people who are very accomplished and very um well off, let's say, then I will always be in a state of dissatisfaction. I will always be hungry, which is good in a way. We are taught to believe that it is good to be hungry all the time. But how hungry, right? Your hunger should be enough. Or I think our hunger should probably be just enough to keep us going and excelling in comparison to what I have been in the previous day, right? And not in comparison to what somebody else is or has on a given date, right? That is the measure of hunger that I should have. Our hunger should be so much that, you know, it just doesn't burn my stomach itself. That leaves you not with nothing else but a burning sensation in the tummy. And that burn is so bad, if your hunger is too much, that burning sensation is probably so unbearable that you don't have the peace of mind to create anything. Imagine painting when you are extremely, extremely hungry. Can you do that? You may, but it'll not be the best state to paint, right? At the same time, it's equally true that if you're, feeling too full of yourself, or if I'm feeling too full of myself, then I will not have the drive and the desire to to excel, to improve, which are also very critical and crucial factors for us to consider in the path of growth, in the path of action. So the question again comes back to balance. How do we know where to balance, or what is the balance? And on that note, I think I always go back to Aristotle, right? The Greek, was it Greek? I think Aristotle was Greek, yeah, Greek philosopher Aristotle, who gave us the wonderful concept of golden means, right? Um, I think the merit and the true sweet spot for success or for content and fulfillment, or not just artists, for anybody, I feel lies in this Aristotelian golden mean. Right? Let me see if I have any comments from any of you, or if any of you are there at all. Or am I talking to myself? Uh, okay. Hi, Shilpi. Hi there. Okay. So I was talking of the golden mean, and in our pursuit of exploring the equilibrium, right? The what do they call the status quo, right? The equilibrium between art and commerce. Uh, we we find Aristotle's golden mean as the golden rule, right? Um, you know, so a point between the two extremes of not having anything, any accomplishments as in terms of finances versus limitless need and greed for finances. And on the other hand, you have total dedication towards artistic excellence and integrity, and not focusing on anything else. So between these two points, these two extremes, where do we target to lie, right? So there is a fine point where we have to find our sweet spot. And this, again, the golden mean is your golden mean, because it's not uniformly, it's not something that's universally applicable at the same point, right? It's like specific gravity. It depends on your circumstances. It depends on your personal backgrounds, your personal needs, and so many other factors, right? So I think our true virtue, um, whatever it is, lies in finding the balance between, you know, these two extremes, a point of moderation where one is, neither, if I can say, deficient and nor excessive, right? In the context of art, or in the context of an artist's life, um, this golden mean can be, seen as the, what do they call, the intersection, right, between creative integrity and financial success. So it's not about diminishing the importance of artistic passion, or, it, uh, you know, we do not need to prefer one over the other. We do not have to diminish the importance of artistic passion in comparison to commercial gains. And nor is it about, neglecting financial stability, right, for the sake of art. Um, Aristotle actually encourages us to navigate these waters uh, with a sense of proportion and balance, right? Just like rowing a boat with two, what do you call them? Two, I don't know what they're called. I'm forgetting. The rows, right? We always need two rows for the boat to move forward, right? If you just pedal one row and keep this stagnant, the boat will not move towards its direction. It'll go, it'll bend towards the way where to the side where you're pedaling, right? So in order for the boat to move forward in the right direction, it's important to pedal both the rows, or pedal, or whatever we want to call it, right? So yeah, and um, and I think somehow by applying this principle, this whole principle of having the mean and the balance, um, we as artists, we can strive for a career um, where where artistic freedom, the true creative spirit, and financial aspirations can actually coexist peacefully, right? And in fact, they can support each other towards the path of success, right? So yeah, so I'm reminded of, constantly reminded of J.K. Rowling, um, who wrote the entire Harry Potter series, right? She wrote out of pure passion. When she wrote it, she never even imagined or had it in her mind that she would be achieving that level of financial gains, or, a commercial success from that entire effort, right? Her journey actually truly exemplifies this balance that I was talking about. And I think what matters is the intent with which we are doing. So when J.K. Rowling was writing Harry Potter, her intent was pure. She was narrating the story of moral values, right? Metaphorical moral values to children, right? For their um, upliftment, for their enlightenment, for their growth of intellect, right? So that was the intention with which she created. And after it was created, it obviously, for its value that it served on a platter for us all, it resonated with millions of people, right? So the intent with which we do anything, any of our creative pursuits, particularly creative pursuits, the intent matters, I would say, really, really significantly, right? Um, so the purity of our intentions actually determines the truest value that we are going to cater, and the impact that our creation carries, the impact of our efforts, right? So actually, on a second thought, actually, this very thought, uh, I think, is exactly what is prescribed, what is told in our Upanishads, the Karma Yoga, right? Um, um, from pinkish Upanishad, but I'm not sure. It's one of the Upanishads that talks about karma yoga, and it emphasizes on our action being driven by a sense of duty and of greater good than of personal growth or personal gains, right? So when artists create, it is their intent that is rooted in contributing to the society in probably somehow uplifting or in inspiring others, generations to come, maybe, right? Um, um, it is that work that is born out of such intent that transcends the desire for mere personal achievements. It then actually becomes a vessel for positive change, um, for a larger societal enrichment. And that is extremely important for true success, right? And if you have to look at it deeply, then this actually doesn't negate the whole pursuit of personal growth. It's not in conflict, right? Your personal growth is a part of the larger good. So when for time and again, when we look into history, people who have created with the intention of contribution, greater contributions, they have had their personal growth in due time. It's up to us to understand how to, balance both, right? Um, Actually, personal and professional development are extremely essential. Nobody is denying that, right? However, when the pursuits are aligned to a higher purpose, right, the journey itself towards personal growth becomes more fulfilling and the success actually becomes more meaningful. Don't you think so? Right. So let's talk a little bit about money. In context of money and success, how does karma yoga what does karma yoga advocate to us, right? Karma yoga actually advocates for a balance where financial success is not just a personal, milestone. Financial success means to contribute more significantly to the community. It actually transforms the whole narrative from success for me to success for us, right? The shift, this shift in, what do you say, focus or shift in perspective itself can lead to a more profound ethical business practice, a business unit, and a more compassionate and mm, compassionate and what do you call it? Deeper, um, sense of compassionate. I'm not getting the word. Let me think about it. Um, it's important to have the right word for this. Resonant form of art that connects with your audience. And then you actually that actually leads to a deeper sense of satisfaction as an artist, knowing that your work actually serves a purpose beyond your own needs, right? So, as I said, the right intent is therefore not just a compass of morality. It's way more powerful. It's a way more powerful catalyst for actually creating work that connects with your um, audience and endures the tests of time, right? That's so very important, right? And it's not just about creating and contributing with a with a sense of confined me, but a, a more expansive consciousness that elevates both the creator, that's you, and also your consumers. Your art, the work that you create actually elevates your consumers to the next level, leading us to a cycle of creating continuous positive impact. And therefore you contribute to your own growth and to the growth of others, right? So that's very, very important, having the right intent um, when you're creating something. The intent of balancing your needs and meeting the society's need for um, intellectual and um, spiritual upliftment, maybe, or social upliftment in general, right? So in terms of the, what do you call that? Social, formal logic. There is a very beautiful concept that I had learned very early on from formal logic, right? There are, we all know about conditions, right? So there are different types of conditions. And in today's talk, we're talking about conditions for success as an artist, financial conditions, artistic integrity, and artistic, freedom, for instance. What are the conditions for an artist to be deemed as successful? So there, in formal logic, give me 1 second. Google has jumped out of my Google. Get down. Google is less of a cat and more of a monkey. So yeah. So as I was saying, the necessary conditions, the sufficient conditions, and a definition of enough, right? So I'm not sure if you've heard about these. So what is a necessary condition, right? Necessary conditions, or a necessary condition, is one that must be fulfilled or must be present, but it is not adequate for in itself, or it is not adequate being alone to be deemed as a success, right? So that's a necessary condition. A condition, if not fulfilled, your overall proposition is not fulfilled, right? But without it, but having it is not sufficient for the whole proposition to be fulfilled. That's a necessary condition. What is a sufficient condition? A sufficient condition, or a set of conditions, are sufficient when when their presence is sufficient to ensure that the outcome is met, right? So if you have 10 parameters that you define as sufficient criteria for yourself to be considered as successful as an artist, then those are the set of conditions that are definitely necessary, and that are definitely going to be together. If they are met, then you basically consider yourself successful. That's a sufficient condition. Now, ideally, in formal logic, these two should be enough for us to consider ourselves, to consider any form of situation and understand whether something is necessary or sufficient for a condition to be met. But in context of modern day, I think there is another thing that is needed, another definition of a requirement for a condition or a set of conditions, and that is whether it is enough or not. And enough is a little bit different from sufficient, in the sense that the concept of sufficiency is when added with a little bit of moderation and contentment, that defines enough, right? So I have what is sufficient, but I am not content with it. right? What is it that is necessary for us to consider something as enough? It is sufficient plus a delta. That is the definition of enough, right? Now, the delta is what varies from individual to individual, right? So um, let me give you an example with respect to an artist, right? So let's say as an artist, your artistic passion and integrity are necessary um, for true artistic expression. So they are the soul of an artist's work, right? So they are necessary for you to be considered successful as an artist. Now, what is sufficient? Maybe, right? Commerce or financial gain can be a sufficient measure of success for someone, but it should not be the only one that is necessary, right? It is not the only one that should be present. So while it is sufficient, it is probably not enough, right? It ensures that, you have survival, you meet your needs, you meet your financial aspirations, and prosperity, but it may not fulfill your very deep artistic um, passion or your artistic values, right? So that is where that balance that I was talking about, the golden mean of Aristotle, is important. So striking a balance between artistic integrity, as I was saying, and financial success can be defined as enough, right? It satisfies both our soul's need for creative um, expression and the practical needs for financial security, right? So I want to give this example from my childhood. Okay, in um, as a child, we had an old lady in our apartment. Um, down, I used to stay on the first. It was the first floor, and on the ground floor in the apartment beside ours, there used to be an aged lady who used to um, what do you call, use a sewing machine, right, those days. And it was a manual sewing machine that was not operated with electricity. So she had this hand thing that, she used to do rounds and rounds and rounds. And I used to sit by her, watching that machine with awe, because that machine, that sewing machine, it was an Usha sewing machine, was kind of one of the most complex machines that I had seen with my own eyes operating. And I could see all the levers and you know, the screws going round and round inside. It was a kind of a magic and miracle for me to see it working, and how the needle would come up and down and the stitch would come. So it was an experience in itself that I used to often go and spend hours with her, talking to her as I saw her stitching something. I don't know what she would stitch. She would be stitching wonderful things, colorful. But that's not the point. There was this one experience that I remember, okay? And that is when once she said that, she had an aching, I think, knee, okay? And she said that the whole the wheel that turned had become a little uh, uh, hard. It had become a little rusted or something, because of which it was difficult for her to push the wheel to for sewing. So what she did, she got up and she used a lubricant, right? A small tube of lubricant, which was some sort of an oil that she put around. There was a rubber tire that was that was there, a belt that was there around that wheel that she used to rotate like this, and she took it out and she greased that entire channel with that lubricant, and um, you know she put back uh, the rubber, the tire, right? And then she gave it a couple of minutes and then she started doing it. And then the sewing machine started running so fast, right? But to my surprise, as she gained speed and momentum, suddenly there was a jerk and she stopped again. And I asked what happened. And she said that the tire, the rubber tire that she had put there, the she said the grease was probably too much, so the rubber tire had slipped, right? So what did I learn from that? What was what I learned was really uh, that sometimes um, we have friction, right? Because of which it becomes hard for us to roll the wheels. Um, Money or financial success is not success in itself. It is probably a necessary condition for success, but it is neither sufficient nor enough, right? So, financial success is that lubricant that I was talking about that you must put in order for us uh, to grease our path to true success, greater success, right? If you don't have that, then the path becomes frictional. And every turn of the cycle or the wheel becomes more and more difficult. So it is important to grease our wheels, and that grease is nothing but a little bit of financial stimuli that you give yourself to boost your speed every time in art, in the pursuit of um, artistic integrity, creative freedom, right? Now, let's come to the other part of the story where the rubber tire actually slipped off the wheel. Slipped because not because of anything. The rubber tire was intact, but it slipped because the grease was too much. It's not the fault of the grease as well, right? It's basically the grease was too much, and and my friend, the elderly lady, she had gained too much momentum, and because there was no friction, the rubber tire slipped. So what happens is there is as we gain financial uh, freedom or financial success, the path becomes slippery. The path to creative freedom becomes slippery and we tend to slip. So it's important that we realize that and put our steps forward in a very measured means, right? Um, so again, coming back to our Upanishads, actually, um, uh, as Karma Yoga says, right, we need to just detach ourselves from all the outcomes that come as a matter of um, results from our work. So we just want to focus on our duty, do due diligence wholeheartedly with your work without any attachment to the outcomes. And thereby you would actually align the creation of art for the sake of art and yet be open to whatever financial outcomes are coming your way as rewards from the actions, right? So that's what our mythology and our Upanishads also say, right? They actually offer to us a timeless perspective of on the what do you call the intertwining of our professional endeavors and our spiritual journey. So uh, it actually teaches us so much um, about how our work is not merely a means to an end, but it is, if I can say, it is an integral part of our spiritual expression and our own growth as well. Actually, karma yoga emphasizes karma yoga. It is basically, as I mentioned, it is the yoga for action or work, right? It tells us to perform our duty with dedication, as I said, and without attachment to the results. And I have heard the concept of be, do, have. Uh, so you basically think about becoming first, doing late after that, and then having. Our mythology actually kind of I think advocates similar thoughts, but as per our mythology or as per the Upanishads, we focus on doing. And as we focus on doing, we become. And have comes as a matter of, you know, results, which we do not even need to envision. The whole modern theory of manifestations revolves around the thought of, thinking about the outcomes, and then, you act in alliance to what your thoughts are about the outcome. So you think about the outcome, and then you imagine yourself of having become that person or that form of that entity, and then you do. Well, that's one way of looking at it, but I think it's even more profound to do what you love, because when you do what you love, and if it's your passion, then you don't need external motivation like thinking about, becoming, or thinking about uh, the haves and imagine it. You will do it because you love it, right? Nobody needs to motivate a child to have chocolates because he loves chocolates. He doesn't even think about what happens to him after he has chocolates. So eat your chocolates because you love the chocolate, not because the chocolate is going to make you um, something. It's not going to make you Bill Gates, right? Or even if it does, that's not the purpose of having the chocolate. So have the chocolate with as much love because you love the chocolate. So paint because you want to paint and you love to paint. In Mahabharata, Arjuna, when he was asked to shoot the birds that Dronacharya had hung on the tree, and he was asked what he was looking at. All his other, co co students said a lot of things while they were aiming at the aiming at the bird. Some said they were seeing the future. Some said how the bird would look after it's dead, and how the archer would feel after he would have shot the bird that was hanging. But all Arjuna saw was the bird's eye. So all we need to do is focus on the bird's eye and less on anything else, because you are doing it not for anything else, but because you love doing it. And you love it because you want to express yourself. You want to, contribute to the greater good. You want to make your mark in helping, in uplifting somebody's life or the society, right? And we don't need anything else apart from that, isn't it? So if we do that in the right way, consistently, resiliently, with resilience, and we all, I think somehow it's so very important, not just as artists, but as any form of uh, creator or contributor, it is important for us to bear in mind the subtle difference between necessary conditions, sufficient conditions, and what is enough. It's important for us to have that definition, clarity around definition of each of these states in our mind, so that we can lead our pursuits of passion and profession to a more fulfilling artistic and financial journey, right? So, yeah, as I close, I would love to reiterate the importance of balance. Um, so we need to respect the sanctity of art and maintain our artistic integrity while equally acknowledging the practicality of financial gains, right? And I would love to encourage you all to reflect on your personal artistic journeys and where you think is that fine, unique balance or the golden mean that you think applies to your life about how much of artistic integrity, artistic creative freedom uh, balances out with your financial requirements, and where do you want that sweet spot to be. Let that definition or let that clarity be there with you in your minds, right? So yeah, I think to close, I will just probably you know refer back to our Gita, where they where we are advised and where we are um, you know beautifully encouraged to do our work with the welfare of others in mind rather than just our personal gains. While we do that, we will definitely have our rewards in the form of finances and other means, whatever is needed. We should be welcoming and open to that idea as well. All right. So thank you all for listening in. Bye bye.